Religion, in its pure form, began as a technology for inner liberation. It was a coded system designed to point human beings back toward the invisible center of their own consciousness, a method for remembering the eternal self beneath the body, stories, and fears. But as soon as spiritual insight was written down, formalized, and placed in the hands of institutions, something predictable occurred. The message meant to free people was used to contain them. The pattern is not mysterious. It is simply human psychology interacting with power. The masses seek meaning, certainty, and protection. Institutions seek stability, influence, and survival. When these two needs meet, religion becomes a perfect tool for mass manipulation, not because spirituality is false, but because it is powerful. The same force that wakes the individual can pacify the collective. The same yearning that frees one person can be redirected to make a population obedient. The mechanism of manipulation. Mass manipulation through religion works by reshaping a person's relationship to their own inner authority. Instead of teaching individuals to look inward, institutions teach them to look upward, toward an external figure, text, or hierarchy presumed to have more access to truth than they do. Over time, spiritual instinct is replaced by dependency. Fear of the unknown replaces curiosity. Ritual replaces direct experience. A doctrine becomes more important than awareness. When people hand over their inner compass, they also hand over their decision-making, their autonomy, and eventually their sense of reality. Fear, as the anchor, nearly every form of religious manipulation relies on fear. Fear of punishment, fear of disobedience, fear of exile, fear of being unworthy, or fear of divine rejection. Fear narrows perception and weakens self-trust, making people easier to influence. Once fear is installed, obedience appears safer than questioning, and submission appears wiser than self-inquiry. As long as fear defines the relationship between the person and the divine, the person will seek protection from the institution that claims to represent the divine. Identity-captured religion also manipulates the masses by offering a ready-made identity. Humans, longing to belong, quickly adopt the collective story. We are the chosen, the saved, the favored, the righteous. With that story comes the shadow twin. They are wrong, lost, dangerous, unworthy. This is the beginning of mass division. People stop relating to one another as fellow humans and start relating to each other as members of opposing spiritual tribes. Once identity is captured, behavior follows predictably. The substitution of symbol for reality. Every religion begins with a mystic, a person who had a direct experience of consciousness, unity, or divine presence. But after that, mystic dies. Institutions build a system around the symbols, metaphors, and teachings, rather than the experience itself. People end up worshiping the finger pointing at the moon instead of looking at the moon. The living experience of unity is replaced with recited beliefs. Spirituality becomes a performance rather than a perception. This gap between symbol and truth is where manipulation thrives. Why this works so well? Religion manipulates effectively because it speaks in the language of existential concerns, meaning, morality, purpose, fear of death, belonging, and cosmic identity. No political ideology or social system reaches as deeply into the human psyche as religion does. When spiritual longing is redirected outward instead of inward, people become dependent on external authority to define reality, morality, and even their own worth. The Hermetic view. From a Hermetic standpoint, mass manipulation through religion represents the inversion of the spiritual process. Instead of turning inward to discover the divine spark, the individual is conditioned to outsource perception, identity, and authority. This creates a population that has forgotten its direct connection to the field of consciousness. A population disconnected from its center is easily swayed, easily divided, and easily controlled. The tragedy is not that religion exists. The tragedy is that its original purpose has been reversed. Spiritual teachings meant to liberate the soul have been turned into psychological structures that reinforce fear, separation, and obedience. The path back to truth, reversing this manipulation, does not require rejecting religion. It requires restoring direct awareness. Once an individual experiences the inner stillness, the center point within, no external system can fully control them. They may appreciate religious stories, symbols, and rituals, but they no longer confuse metaphor with reality. They no longer require fear to behave morally. They no longer need permission to experience the sacred. The manipulation collapses the moment the inner authority returns to its rightful place, inside the individual